My name is Jonathan Betts. I work for Science Warehouse, and the session we're putting on today is talking about delivering cost reduction and creating strategic value. I presume most of you were at Remco van Hoek's talk earlier this morning, and it's quite interesting. A lot of the points that he picked up are reflected in the session today. So hopefully there'll be some commonality there and some things to build on. So I don't think he quite answered all the questions that I'm putting forward. And obviously from a Science Warehouse perspective, we're sort of looking at it very much from a underpinning technology point of view as well. So hopefully some of the insights today will actually help you with looking at that aspect of driving value. So to kick things off, we're going to look at a recent survey we did actually in association with eWorld Purchasing and Supply, which was we called the Procurement Trends, an annual survey we do, just to understand the current procurement landscape, what's out there in terms of the challenges and opportunities within procurement during this year. And then to pose the question, why move beyond cost reduction? I think those of you that were at Remco talk will have seen the answer to that, so hopefully we won't need to go into that one in too much detail. But the next point is really what does sort of value creation look like beyond that sort of cost reduction piece, and essentially how do we get there from where we are now? We'll see hopefully a few minutes for questions at the end. So just a quick snapshot around Science Warehouse. So we're a provider of procure-to-pay and catalogue-driven e-procurement and spend analysis solutions. The business has been going for almost 13 years, 13 years this month actually, so not quite as long as eWorld, but getting there. We are a fast-growing business, one of the fastest-growing businesses in the UK e-business sector, thanks to our customers who we work in partnership with, and a number of you are here today, so pleased to see you. And really what we're delivering is clearly the first element of the cost equation in terms of driving cost and compliance, but looking to the future, it's very much around data-driven solutions and providing the information that deliver what we're calling hindsight in real time. So just starting off, as I said, just to look at the sort of state of play. We did this survey, as I said, together with eWorld. So this was, we got responses from 263 procurement practitioners across a whole range of industries. This was carried out in December. And we've got copies of the results if people are interested in those, looking at them in more detail. Happy to share those, but give a quick summary here today. So the first thing we looked at was our procurement people on the ground actually moving from this sort of cost focus more onto strategic value creation. And really the answer is cost reduction still remains the #1 priority for organisations. So as you can see from the graph there, 76% of respondents said that cost reduction remains their #1 priority. And that was very similar to what we saw last year as well, where it was around about 80% too. So that is very much core to procurement's focus at the current time and the coming year. The second element there is around supply risk, which probably falls into both categories in terms of cost reduction and value creation. We may have time to come on to some of that later. But the third one, which was quite interesting in terms of priorities, was becoming more strategic. And that's clearly a driver for many, I guess many of you in the audience. And as I said, the focus here today is what does that look like and how does that come about? Many of the other elements on there are probably what you'd call the traditional compliance and productivity pieces around obviously financial control, saving time, etc. Another factor we looked at, which is quite interesting, I think, maybe not directly related to the core of the session today, but just in terms of where procurement people believe the major challenges are in terms of sector-wise. And we did see a bit of a shift from the analysis last year, where the government came out very much on top in terms of being seen as having the major challenges. Now, why that is, we're not quite sure, because obviously the austerity program has been around for some time, but whereas in the previous year, manufacturing was very high up there, government seems to have come to the fore much more so. And this is across a base, across all industries, so it wasn't due to the weighting of the actual survey base. But be interested in hearing anyone's thoughts as to why that might have shot up the listing like that. And a snapshot in terms of where organisations actually are. So looking at, again, the core of what procurement does, spend under management. I've said some struggle, which seems to be the answer coming out of all the responses that we had, that in fact less than half of indirect spend is controlled by procurement in the majority of organisations. So the sort of big blue bit on the right of there shows that 55% of the organisation survey have less than 40% of spend under management. So there's clearly quite a way to go, even in terms of achieving those buying basics. I think one of the reasons for that is, looking at this, is the level of investment has gone into procurement tools. Historically, again, looking at this particular response base, there's almost 2/3 of them are not fully deploying dedicated procure-to-pay tools. They're using maybe tools that are available within other types of systems, but they're not really leveraging the types of solutions that, say, a Science Warehouse or the other providers out here can provide to really drive that compliance piece. So that seems to be one of the reasons why there's a lack of spend under management. It's not all bad news, though, because the priorities in terms of looking at where procurement organisations are investing or not, as the case may be, shows that the majority are planning to increase their investment. So 60% will increase investment in technology, training, and recruiting additional roles. So the purple 25% is increased investment in technology. 19% plan to recruit additional expertise and resource into the procurement function, which is obviously a bit of a turnaround from a few years ago when there was a lot of cutbacks within the function. So that's a very positive note, I think, coming out of this. And investment in training as well, which you might say, well, it should be bigger than 16%, but I guess that's an ongoing thing within organisations. So that was just a quick snapshot of the survey. As I say, we have got copies of the results if people are interested in seeing more detail and having a conversation about that. We've got Stan just down the bottom of the stairs, and the guys will be happy to help you out on that piece. But I think one of the things this has pointed to is really this lack of spend under management and the like is what we term the sort of procurement chasm. So this is really the gap between, I guess, the haves and the have-nots in terms of the procurement leaders are very much out there in terms of driving the sort of new value equation, the sort of stuff we heard about earlier from Remco, and the rest of the market is kind of struggling to leap that gap. So what we're interested in looking at is how that gap can be crossed, and the real practitioners on the ground are actually making that move from the cost equation through to the value creation element. So to do that, for the rest of the talk, just sort of, where are the procurement leaders? As I said, why move beyond cost? Hopefully we've answered that one. What does that value creation look like, and how do we get there? I've just picked up in the next 2 or 3 slides on a few different pieces of sort of research and observations really about what's out there. So the whole concept of Procurement 2.0 is probably a little bit old hat now, but I think it's still quite interesting in terms of, as a label, it's actually talking about something which is still highly relevant, I believe. So on the one hand, you've got what you might call the traditional procurement landscape, and what they labelled as a KPMG study, Procurement 1.0, where effectively all the procurement functions are quite disaggregated. The function is very much standalone, and there is sort of high cost of ownership of the technology and the supporting tools for procurement. Whereas over on the right-hand side, we're very much looking at the new procurement landscape, which they call Procurement 2.0, is much tighter integration. As I say, they're suite-oriented solutions, so you've got that, in effect, the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle coming together into that integrated piece. More open standards, so from a technology point of view, you've got greater accessibility, usability, and scalability, which, as we all know, is key to driving adoption within organisations. And also greater use of what they've called on-demand resources, so web-based tools and technologies. And from that, the sort of collaboration tools which really drive out that engagement, which is, as we'll see, is critical to moving to that next stage. So what is value creation? You might say, well, why would a business be interested in procurement, sort of going out to them, and why would they listen to the story they might have to tell? So clearly it has to be very much around deploying capabilities that are unique to procurement to drive competitive advantage within the organisation. I've just picked up on here on some of the work that's come out of some work we're doing on something called the Procurement Battle Plan, which is about creating effectively a manifesto for procurement to take to their business around identifying some of these value creators. And I'm going to have a quote in a minute from Michael Bennett from Infinium is in the audience, but participated in one of our sessions. And this is, I was having a conversation with Michael earlier actually around why is procurement different from, say, any other function, whether it's, we talked about HR and how HR has gone from being a sort of recruitment function to a talent management function within organisations, and procurement needs to make that similar sort of move, but it obviously has to be around capabilities that are very much unique to procurement. So this is actually from an article which Michael actually did following the Procurement Battle Plan, which is on our Science Warehouse site. But again, it's looking at what's in the traditional procurement space, so it's all the things you'd expect to find, spend analysis, segmentation, etc., through to the advanced piece, which is there's a bunch of things in there. Obviously, being involved in in-source and outsource decisions. I mean, that's a classic area where procurement should be involved. But I think in many organisations it may not be, because it's just not recognised. It's seen in that sort of tactical transaction box, leading SRM programs, etc. You'd probably say certainly the first three on those are almost obvious from a procurement perspective. When you get to product development, maybe it's a little less evident, but again, points around harnessing supplier innovation, rationalisation of components or elements within a product suite are clearly key and very much, and driving cost pressure onto the supply chain, very much part of procurement capabilities and skills. And then the final point about sitting at the M&A table, I suppose that's again, procurement has a lot to value, because ultimately if you're either an acquirer or an acquiree, the supply chain is ultimately key to the competitive success of the future organisation or organisations coming out of that M&A activity. The third piece I wanted to pick up on was some work which has been done, and again I can give you the reference for this, which will be shown on there. It's available via the web, but by Matthias Kaiser and Sami Rashid from Novartis, which they've asked this very same question which we've been talking about today, sort of what they've called beyond procurement, and they've gone out to CPOs and global organisations to look at what some of these areas may be that procurement can add value. And they've come up with a list of 10, which is, I think Sami's got it on the Procurement Leaders blog, so if you look on there, there's a series of articles where he's covered these in some depth, but I've just picked off some of the top ones here, which look of interest and probably the most sort of attainable and relevant. So business services, you might say, well, that's potentially a little bit old hat, but there's still, I think, a lot of running to go there in terms of whether it's shared services or whatever it may be. And ongoing savings to be made for organisations from effectively providing that transactional support to the broader organisation or organisations. The second point in there is innovation sourcing. So this is about working with a supply base to actually bring in their ideas and innovation in both product design, development, and process. So that clearly requires the sort of engagement skills that procurement has to be able to make that work, and it's about making that replicable and codified effectively so it can work across that supply chain. Total cost-based management is really about bringing together procurement with outsourcing, offshoring, and sort of Lean Six Sigma principles, and applying that across the organisation. So again, a lot of organisations, procurement can be sort of pigeonholed within a certain area, whereas if the combining it with the classic sort of Lean Six Sigma approach and applying that across the organisation obviously presents opportunities for a lot more savings and productivity. So all of these that they've shown in there in terms of productivity impact. And the final point is extended SRM. So that's really taking, I guess as the name suggests, taking supplier relationship management to the next stage and taking some of those Lean Six Sigma principles into the supply base to actually provide, I guess, a level of integration that may currently be lacking or is in many cases. So if you look at each of those areas, I'm not sure they're all entirely additive, but if you look at the classic sort of cost reduction program, the savings you can generate from that, once that's done, if you then move on to these types of activities, there's clearly a lot more impact that procurement can have within organisations. I think another point which I just sort of put at the end there is, I think a point again that Remco made this morning was around this alignment with business strategy and goals. So there's very little point in terms of procurement cooking up these great concepts and ideas to take out and deliver additional value if they don't actually align with what the business is doing, what the business is looking to achieve. So that's clearly very much a key element of applying any of this, is that both the sort of getting the board level buy-in and probably more importantly the middle management layer that actually is involved in implementing these kinds of activities. I thought this was a nice quote from Michael's article, as I mentioned. Savings are the first base that procurement must get to establish credibility and sell itself more broadly. So whilst we often talk about where is the next piece, savings obviously always have to be there, even when they've been delivered. That's always going to be part of the procurement equation, and really is key to, as it says there, establishing that initial credibility to get the ear of the business and the buy-in. And the selling point as well. I think there was talk this morning around using sort of marketing principles within procurement to build those relationships within the business to support that. So coming back to my procurement chasm piece, so how do we get across from this the cost and compliance piece on the left to the value creation? So I say a lot of this looks really good on paper, but for many in business itself, you can deliver a lot of savings, and the business may come back and say, we want more. You've been successful at that, we want more. But to get across that piece, obviously there is a lot of work to be done really to shake off the shackles, if you like, of cost and compliance. And I think that's all about this kind of process. So the first point is about delivering the results. So delivering those savings the business has asked for, you've been targeted on, and once you've got those, it's taking those results to the business. And coming back to the quote earlier, it's getting that credibility. From that, it's a case of driving the recognition and building the plans that some of these elements we've looked about in terms of whether you call it procurement 2.0, whatever it is, only some of those will be relevant to particular businesses or most applicable. So clearly those must be shown in the context of the organisation in order to show how value creation can be delivered within your particular organisation. So maybe some thoughts around if you are stuck at that first base, if you like, what are the sorts of things we can look at? And I've brought this back to the technology piece and P2P because it's the area obviously we know best at Science Warehouse. And I just picked up some, this is from Spend Matters, so a short listing of areas, but they are fairly common factors that are often missed or have been missed in early stage P2P deployments. And if they're addressed, it provides a very quick means of sort of moving up to the next level. So first one is catalog and content management, often missed in those initial analyses of looking at a P2P or an e-procurement solution. But data is absolutely key to success, the lifeblood of any e-procurement or procurement solution. And getting that onto the platform, into the environment that's relevant, accurate, up to date, etc., is essential to success. Supplier enablement, again, can be missed. May be seen as, well, it's going to happen, but there needs to be a specific program, a specific capability to actually drive that for any particular e-procurement programs, it doesn't happen by itself. It does require resource. It does require the right sort of tools and accessibility for your supplier base for that to work. The final 2 points I put around search, so that's accessing the data, whether it's your contracts, catalogues, etc., and being able to leverage the information that you actually have there, and cumbersome navigation. That's the sort of the downside, but also the upside is you need to have a solution that is very usable. So, and ultimately, this is what it's about: is having a solution which is usable, whether it's around your business users within the business, whether it's around the suppliers, or whomever else that needs to be engaged for a successful program. And you could say, well, this extends out. This is obviously sort of looking through the sort of microscope of P2P, but that's something that you can apply across any procurement change program. So if we coming back to the data piece, I think that is absolutely key to anything that you do. So if you look at the procurement cycle there, from spend analysis and on through, the data piece is, as I say, absolutely central to that, as we say. So whether it's doing that initial spend analysis, your sourcing exercises, implementing and managing contracts and tracking those, the procure to pay piece, obviously, and supplier performance, all those really drive off their success, drives off having that accurate data as the core of the activity. So those are all that cycle there. Obviously, the classic procurement cycle, somewhat simplified, obviously, for the purposes of this presentation. But what I thought I'd do is just sort of layer onto that how the sort of value creation elements that we looked at fit into that framework. So you can see they actually, you could actually ask, well, does innovation sourcing, the piece talked about earlier, actually fit there? But in terms of this diagram, it fits best in that place, I think. But you could put it in other areas. But the key point is it actually drives out, again, from the data in the centre to having a successful innovation sourcing program. Similarly, the total cost-based management piece, again, forms the next layer out, and the extended SRM. To say, so all of these, you could say, well, they could potentially go as a complete wrapper around there because they're all very much integrated. But the point is, you need to do the bits in the middle first and build out before you get to those outer elements. The last one was the business services piece, which is very much encompasses that whole thing, really, doesn't it? But again, requires all of that to be done effectively. So sort of looking forward into the future and coming back to our survey, just sort of summarising some of that. One of the questions we asked is, what are the biggest challenges for procurement in 2013? The first one up there is more investment wanted, which is you could probably go to anyone in any business say, oh, I want more money and more resource. We're all fighting for that within our businesses, but if we look down from there, then the moving from a tactical to a strategic function is really the main sort of procurement-specific one, if you like, in terms of the survey base and the fact that this is something that is very much on the agenda. And if you look at the other elements that are on there in terms of building relationships across the business, talent acquisition and development, these are very much feeders. Probably the talent acquisition and development one, certainly in our procurement battle plan forums, this is something that's been picked up very strongly as having the right people come into the business can actually, if you go back to our procurement chasm piece, that can actually come in, recognise where the value is, have the energy and the ability to communicate, deliver and then communicate the results to the business, and then actually then build the plans out from there, very much around engagement within the business. So the business users are actually coming to procurement when they have a commercial challenge or question, rather than them being policed by procurement, which is obviously very much the case at the early stages of that development. So I'll just finish up, if you don't mind, on the technology piece of the technology wrap, just showing where that fits into this whole piece. So the first stage on the left-hand side of the procurement chasm, if you like, is very much around delivering cost and compliance, so using those classic P2P tools, and that actually gives you the information, drives the results, which you can then take out to the business to drive the recognition. And then just a few elements, looking forward into the future, and this is something where we're working very actively. Obviously, usability is somewhat of a given, but if you look at where procurement technology and tools are going, it's all very much around the collaboration piece and supporting that. And using things, it's called put big data on there, which is a bit of an amorphous term, I know, but really using those sort of big data principles in a procurement context to be able to really analyze your spend and do things like whether it's benchmarking, and looking at performance across your supply base, looking at performance internally, looking at how your procurement organisation is doing versus peers, whether within or external to the industry, and all that is around the extended value piece, which supports the value-driven element. To finish on a very positive note, this was coming out of the survey in terms of obviously procurement delivers, which everyone here in the room knows that, but something we obviously need to shout out to the business as well. So based on last year and the respondents, up to 20% savings achieved through cost reduction programs. So say that with all the talk of strategy and value creation, all those good things, ultimately that's what has to be delivered, is those savings. And procurement as a whole, certainly as represented by the survey, is delivering that. So that was my piece. I think I've pretty much run out of time, so thank you very much for your time. What I'd like to do is certainly invite everyone to get involved in our sort of procurement battle plan. We've got these cards, which are, say, death of procurement on the front. That's just to make you sort of pick it up. But effectively, we're looking at this next stage of procurement, where procurement's going, and we're having that dialogue through a series of forums, whether roundtable type activities, through our blog, basically looking to engage and build out, as I said, a kind of manifesto about what does procurement in the future look like. We're really keen to get everyone involved in that conversation. So, thank you for your time.